The twin suns of Aurelian Prime dipped low against the horizon, casting the city in a molten haze of gold and violet. Towers of crystalline steel stretched into the sky like frozen spears, their reflective surfaces bending the light into shifting patterns that danced across the streets below. Floating sky cars drifted between elevated highways, leaving behind trails of luminescence like the tails of comets. Emma pulled the hood of her plain servant's cloak lower over her face as she walked through the bustling lower district. Once, she would have never hidden. Once her very presence had been enough to make planetary warlords tremble. But that was before the missions that broke her, before the power that had burned in her veins simply faded. Now she was nothing more than another shadow in the neon tides of Aurelian Prime. The estate loomed ahead of her, a fortress disguised as elegance. Robert Kalin's residence was one of the most recognizable structures in the city. A 100-story spire of obsidian glass wrapped in silver veins of nanotech wiring. Security drones floated lazily around the perimeter, their spherical forms scanning every passer-by. Emma approached the gate, her identification chip pressed against. "The scanner." "Emma Vale," the system intoned in a neutral voice. "New hire? Domestic service? Kitchen and quarters wing." A green light swept over her, and the gates slid open with an almost reverent hum. Emma stepped inside, her sharp eyes cataloging everything: guard rotation, camera placements, the subtle shimmer of an energy shield woven through the walls. She couldn't help it. Her body might have betrayed her, her strength stripped away, but her mind was still that of an agent. Years of training were not erased simply because fate had stolen her power. The entry hall swallowed her whole. Floors of polished onyx reflected the chandeliers above, each one a cascade of crystal like captured starlight. Holographic art shifted across the walls, abstract shapes morphing into entire galaxies, constellations stretching and folding into new patterns with every blink. Servants moved quietly, their uniforms crisp, their expressions blank as they passed. Emma fell into step, blending in with the quiet rhythm of the household. She had studied the staff roster before arriving. Every name, every face, every position. Blending in was survival. If Robert or anyone else ever learned who she had once been, everything she'd worked to bury would resurface. And Emma Vale could not afford resurrection. A stern woman with silver hair and an immaculately pressed uniform approached. "New arrival?" Emma dipped her head respectfully. "Yes, kitchen and quarters duty." The woman's gaze lingered on her, sharp and assessing. "You move like someone who's done this before." "Work is work," Emma replied simply, keeping her tone low, submissive. The woman gave a curt nod. "Good. Lord Kalin expects perfection. Do not disappoint him." Emma followed her through corridors that stretched like arteries through the estate, each hallway humming faintly with concealed energy grids. As they walked, Emma glimpsed parts of Robert Kalin's empire, rooms lined with rare artifacts from fallen civilizations, windows that opened into hanging gardens suspended hundreds of meters above the city, a private hangar where sleek ships gleamed like predators at rest. Everything about the place screamed power, and at the heart of it all was Robert Kalin, the richest man on Earth, a figure whispered about in both admiration and fear. Emma had seen his face before in passing, plastered on screens, on the lips of senators and smugglers alike. Always untouchable, always in control. Until now, she'd never expected their worlds to intersect. The silver-haired woman led Emma into the servants' quarters, handing her a uniform, black and white, simple, unremarkable, perfect. Emma changed quickly, slipping into the role as though it were another disguise, another mission. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she almost laughed. Emma Vale, once the galaxy's most coveted agent, reduced to a maid. But survival demanded humility, and humility was better than death. Hours passed in a blur of chores, polishing surfaces, arranging linens, cleaning rooms so pristine they seemed untouched. Emma worked silently, efficiently, ignoring the ache in her chest as her mind drifted to missions past, the adrenaline of combat, the weight of a plasma pistol in her hand, the fire of her lost abilities. Now she scrubbed marble floors. Her solitude shattered when the elevator doors opened at the end of the hall. A small group of voices spilled out, accompanied by a magnetic presence that instantly shifted the air. Emma turned, her breath catching. Robert Kalin. He was taller than she expected, broad-shouldered, his dark suit tailored to perfection. His hair, dark with streaks of silver, framed a face both handsome and intimidating. But it was his eyes that struck her, a piercing steel gray that seemed to see through walls, through people, through lies themselves. He spoke casually to the men beside him, his tone measured but commanding. The staff bowed their heads as he passed, yet Emma kept her movements calm, deliberate, folding a cloth as though she hadn't noticed him. But she had, and when his gaze briefly swept over her, she felt it, an awareness like the graze of a blade, along her skin. For a heartbeat too long, his eyes lingered. Then he was gone, his footsteps fading into the distance, leaving only silence in his wake. Emma exhaled slowly, steadying herself. That look had not been casual. Robert Kalin was a man who noticed everything, and Emma Vale had just stepped into his world. As she returned to her duties, her mind raced. She had sworn to vanish, to bury her identity and her past beneath layers of servitude and silence. But something in Robert's gaze told her that disappearing inside this house would not be as simple as she had hoped. The shadows of her past had followed her to Aurelian Prime, and perhaps inside this glittering fortress, her new life was already beginning to unravel. The darkness of the bridge was broken only by the pulse of failing lights. Elias sat at the captain's chair, his body slouched forward, the hum of the engines around him nothing more than a low groan. The Orenfall was a ghost now, a ship, stripped of its once proud crew, its corridors echoing with absence. He hadn't slept in days. Time itself had unraveled into a blur. Stars swam across the viewing glass, distant and indifferent, while Elias fought against the silence that gnawed at his sanity. His reflection in the glass barely resembled the man he once was, hair unkempt, jaw shadowed with stubble, eyes hollow with grief. Then came the sound. It began as a faint static, hissing from the comm system like the crackle of some ancient radio. Elias's head snapped up, his heart pounding against his ribs. No signals had reached him in months. He had stopped listening for them. The static grew sharper, fragments of distortion cutting through the empty bridge. He moved slowly, almost afraid that sudden motion would break the fragile miracle. His fingers trembled as he adjusted the frequency, searching for clarity. Then, through the static, a voice broke. "Survivors. Anyone. Copy." Elias froze. The words echoed through his skull, unreal, like a dream spoken. Aloud, his breath hitched, and he leaned closer, his voice shaking. "This is Captain Elias Rowe of the Orenfall. I read you. His throat caught, strangling the words. He swallowed, forced himself to breathe, then tried again. "I read you? Who is this?" The line distorted, the voice slipping in and out. "Echo Station. Not all lost." Elias pressed the comms harder, adjusting dials, his desperation clawing at the edges of reason. "Repeat, please." "Repeat. Where are you transmitting from?" But the static swallowed the voice whole. The bridge was left in silence once again, the faint buzz of dying systems filling the void where hope had lived for a heartbeat. Elias collapsed back into his chair, his chest heaving. Was it real? Or had his starved mind crafted illusions from static? He gripped the armrests until his knuckles blanched, forcing himself to steady. Then he heard it again, not the voice this time, but something deeper, something buried within the interference. A rhythm, a pattern. He narrowed his eyes, replaying. The transmission through the console. The distortion was not random. It was deliberate, encoded, a message hidden inside the static. His heart began to race. He wasn't alone. Someone, something, had left him a breadcrumb trail. For the first time in months, Elias felt something ignite within him. It wasn't joy. It wasn't relief. It was fire. Hope, fragile but unyielding. He rose from his chair, his reflection in the glass no longer just a broken man, but a captain reborn with purpose. Somewhere out there in the void, survivors called for him, and he would answer. The Orenfall, though battered and scarred, grown to life as Elias rerouted its course. The ship shifted, aligning with the coded coordinates hidden within the maw. Transmission. The stars outside seemed to burn brighter, as if the universe itself leaned closer to watch what would come next. Elias whispered into the silence, not as a plea, but as a vow. "I'm coming." The Orenfall drifted through the silent expanse like a shadow hunting its own echo. Stars stretched into pale ribbons as the ship accelerated past planetary remnants and debris fields, their fractured hulls glinting faintly under distant suns. Elias paced the bridge, his mind sharp with anticipation and caution. Every system hum, every sensor blip could signify either salvation or death. The encoded signal had led him here, to a sector unmarked on any chart, coordinates that didn't exist in the official databases. And yet, there it had been, clear as the heartbeat of some cosmic entity, an unmistakable call. Approaching designated coordinates, the Orenfall's AI intoned, her voice calm and monotone, in stark contrast to the tension that gripped Elias's shoulders. Unknown object detected within proximity. Mass readings indicate a large, stationary structure. Elias's eyes narrowed. Stationary structure? Give me visuals. The main display shifted, revealing an enormous silhouette suspended in the black. Its architecture was alien yet strangely elegant, like glass spires twisted into impossible angles, fused with metal that shimmered as if alive. Massive docking ports jutted from its sides, and lights, faint and flickering, glowed from deep. Within the hull, "Impossible," Elias muttered. "Nothing on record, no construction, no signature. It shouldn't exist." The Orenfall slowed, drawing closer to the structure. The sensors picked up subtle vibrations emanating from within. Energy, signatures pulsing rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Elias pressed his palm to the console, feeling the hum under his fingertips. The signal had been right. Someone, or something, was alive inside. "Bring us closer." "I want a docking scan," he ordered, his voice steady, despite the rush of adrenaline. The ship glided in, magnetic clamps extending and locking onto the structure with soft metallic clicks. The airlock hissed as the chamber equalized pressure. Elias checked his suit systems, ensuring life support and comms were functional. Every movement was deliberate, every breath measured. He stepped onto the corridor connecting the Orenfall to the alien station. The passage was illuminated by an eerie blue glow emanating from the walls, light that seemed to pulse in time with the station's internal energy. Every footstep echoed with uncanny precision, bouncing off surfaces that defied conventional geometry. The station smelled of ozone and decay, an odd combination that prickled Elias's senses. He felt a subtle vibration beneath his boots, as though the entire structure was alive, observing his intrusion. He moved cautiously through the labyrinthine corridors, scanning every alcove, every shadow. And then he saw it, a figure, a silhouette against the far wall, lit by the soft azure glow. "Hello?" Elias called, his voice echoing. "I received your transmission. Are you alive?" The figure didn't move, but the sensors flared, organic. Life detected. Elias's pulse quickened. He advanced slowly, hand hovering near his sidearm. Then the figure stepped forward. It was human, though unlike any human Elias had seen. Pale skin seemed almost translucent, hair silver like starlight, eyes glimmering with intelligence and something else, fear, or perhaps recognition. "Captain Rowe," the figure said, voice trembling but clear. I didn't think anyone would find us." "Who are you?" Elias demanded. "Why are you here? Who sent the signal?" "My name is Mara," she whispered. "We were abandoned, left to die after the collapse of Sector 12. The agency, they erased everything. But I survived. Somehow." Elias's mind raced. Sector 12? The classified missions, the lost divisions, the teams erased from existence. He had heard whispers, but nothing concrete. And yet here she was, proof of survival. "How long have you been here?" he asked, taking in the sight of her gaunt face and haunted eyes. "Years," Mara said, voice breaking. "We hid, scavenged what we could, kept ourselves alive. We thought nobody would come." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. The isolation, the fear, the sense of betrayal, it was all too familiar. He extended a hand cautiously. "You're safe now? Come aboard the Orenfall. I'll get you out of here." She hesitated, glancing back down the endless corridors. "They might still be watching," she whispered. Elias's jaw tightened. "Then we leave quietly. No one else will touch this sector again." As Mara moved alongside him, Elias activated the ship's stealth systems. The Orenfall hummed to life, invisible to any distant sensors. As they returned to the docking chamber, the alien station loomed silently behind them, a frozen monument to secrets and betrayal. Once aboard, Mara collapsed into a chair, exhaustion overtaking her. Elias watched her, studying every detail, the sharp line of her jaw, the haunted glimmer in her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly despite her apparent control. She was alive. And that was everything. "Tell me everything," Elias said, softly. "Every detail, every name, every mission that was erased. I need to know the truth." Mara nodded, her eyes finally meeting his. "It's time someone remembered us. Time someone fought back." Elias exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The void had given him a second chance, and now it was up to him to honor it. Outside, the stars stretched into infinity, indifferent, yet witnessing the birth of an alliance that could shake the galaxy. Two survivors, haunted by the past, now faced a future rife with danger, betrayal, and the faint spark of hope that could ignite rebellion. Elias and Mara would no longer drift in the void alone. The Orenfall drifted silently through the void, the stars outside casting pale glimmers across its darkened hull. Inside, the air was heavy with tension. Mara sat in the observation lounge, staring out at the infinite stretch of black, her hands clasped tightly together as if holding herself together from the inside. Elias stood near the console, fingers tracing the smooth metal, as his mind wrestled with the fragments of Mara's story. Sector 12. "Erased?" Elias asked finally, his voice low. "I knew something was off about that mission, but erased? That's deliberate. Who could have done this?" Mara's silver hair caught the dim light, strands brushing against her pale cheeks. "It wasn't just one person or one agency. It was a coalition. They wanted the truth buried, and they used us as ghosts, our deaths fabricated, our existence erased." Elias turned sharply. "A coalition? You mean governments? Corporations? Both?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, and they weren't satisfied with erasing our memories. They targeted the technology we recovered. There's a reason Sector 12 was sealed off from the charts. They found something they couldn't control." Elias felt the familiar cold dread settle over him. Sector 12 had been one of the most dangerous missions he'd ever commanded, but he had never fully understood what they'd been protecting or why it had been erased. Now the pieces were falling into place, but the picture was more terrifying than he could have imagined. "Show me," Elias demanded. "Everything you recovered, every log, every artifact." Mara rose. Slowly, her movements deliberate and careful, she led him to a secure compartment in the hull, one that she had kept untouched for years. The panel hissed open, revealing stacks of data drives, each etched with the symbol of the long-forgotten agency that had sent them to Sector 12. This, Mara said, holding one up, contains the last transmissions before the shutdown, but the most important is this drive. She placed a small black obelisk in Elias's hands. It's not just a data drive. It's a neural interface. It connects directly to the user's memory and senses. What's on it is dangerous if it falls into the wrong hands. Elias examined the obelisk, noting the faint hum emanating from within. Dangerous how? Mara's crimson eyes, usually so controlled, flickered with unease. It shows them everything we saw, felt, and knew in Sector 12. But it also records potential futures. Whoever uses it can manipulate outcomes, rewrite history before it even happens. Elias's jaw tightened. And this coalition wanted it? Yes, Mara whispered. They wanted control over the future itself. They erased us to make sure no one could interfere. The weight of her words pressed down on him. Time, missions, allies, all had been lies, fabricated or erased for the benefit of those who had feared knowledge. And now, after months of isolation, he and Mara were the only ones left with the truth. We need to get this somewhere safe, Elias said. We need to analyze it, find out what they're planning. Mara shook her head. They've been tracking every known route in the galaxy. Any attempt to leave Sector 12's coordinates on record will be traced. We need a secure location, one that doesn't exist in their databases. Elias's mind raced. He knew just the place, a hidden station at the edge of the Epsilon Rift, abandoned and uncharted, perfect for hiding, perfect for planning their next move. As they prepared the Orenfall for departure, the ship's sensors flickered suddenly, a warning tone cutting through the silence. Elias ran to the console, scanning rapidly. "Contact!" he shouted. "Small vessel approaching fast. No transponder. Unregistered." Mara tensed, her hand resting on the side of the console. "They found us." Elias's heart pounded as the unknown vessel drew closer, a sleek black craft unlike anything he'd ever seen. Its shape was predatory, designed to strike without warning, its hull radiating a faint energy signature that made every hair on his body stand on end. "Evasive maneuvers," he commanded, his voice calm despite the storm in his chest. "Prepare for possible boarding. Mara, get ready." The Orenfall shuddered as it launched into evasive motion, twisting through the void with precision born of years of experience. Lasers streaked past, narrowly missing the hull, leaving scorched trails across the dark vacuum. The intruder vessel mirrored their movements with terrifying accuracy, anticipating each turn, each shift. "This isn't random," Mara muttered. "They know us. They know you." Elias gritted his teeth. "Of course they do, and they want that obelisk." The chase stretched on for what felt like hours. Every maneuver, every calculated turn brought them closer to the edge of the rift, a swirling mass of energy and gravitational distortions, a place even the Coalition feared to tread. Finally, with a calculated thrust, Elias sent the Orenfall diving into the rift, the vessel's engines straining under the gravitational pull. The intruder followed, but the turbulence was too great, its hull shaking violently, systems flickering. With a final roar, the pursuing ship was ripped away, vanishing into the maelstrom. Elias exhaled, gripping the console. That was too close. Mara sank into a chair, her breathing heavy. "They will keep coming," she said softly. "They will never stop." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying both her and himself. "Then we don't stop either. We uncover their secrets, we find the truth, and we make sure no one can erase it again." Outside, the rift roared around them, a chaotic storm of light and energy reflecting the storm now settling in their hearts. The void was alive with danger, but for the first time in months Elias felt hope, a dangerous, fragile hope, because now, with Mara by his side, he was no longer alone in the shadows. Together, they would fight the ghosts of the past and confront the power that had tried to erase them from history. The Orenfall emerged from the turbulence of the Epsilon Rift, battered but intact. Outside, the rift's storm of swirling energy cast jagged streaks of violet and teal across the void, reflecting off the ship's hull in fractured, ghostly patterns. It was a dangerous place, uncharted, and avoided by all but the most reckless or desperate. Elias exhaled, his knuckles white, as he gripped the console. "We made it," Mara said quietly, her voice barely above the hum of the ship's systems. Yet even in her calm tone, the tension lingered. For now. Elias's eyes scanned the navigation system. The hidden station lay ahead, a relic from centuries past, unmarked on any official galactic registry. It floated like a solitary sentinel in the rift's heart, a labyrinth of hollowed decks and reinforced gravity chambers, designed during a time when secrecy was as vital as survival. As the Orenfall docked with precision, magnetic clamps securing them to the station's hull, Mara's eyes darted around, alert. "This place hasn't seen life in decades. It's perfect," she said, though her tone carried a faint edge of unease. Elias stepped onto the station first, sensors scanning every corner. The corridors were dark and narrow, the walls lined with corroded panels and dormant control systems. Echoes of long-forgotten activity resonated faintly, whispering secrets of the past. "Secure the perimeter," Elias ordered. "We don't know if they tracked us this far." Mara moved alongside him, her hands brushing lightly over the walls as if feeling for hidden sensors or traps. Her crimson eyes glimmered in the dim light, reflecting both caution and a strange, unspoken curiosity. "There's more than just physical security here," she whispered. "The station itself is aware. It's semi-sentient. It reacts to intruders." Elias's brow furrowed. "Aware? How?" "Old defense systems," Mara explained. "The station can isolate areas, lock corridors, even manipulate power. If it senses danger, it can trap us or protect us, depending on intent." Elias nodded slowly. "Then we treat it with respect." They advanced into the heart of the station, reaching a central chamber that once served as the command hub. Screens flickered faintly with residual power, long-dead systems coming alive at their presence. Mara approached the main console, wiping decades of dust from its surface. "This is where we can access the archives," she said. "If the station still contains logs from its operational days, we might find information about the Coalition's origins and their ultimate goal." Elias felt a surge of anticipation. The obelisk, the neural interface, rested securely in a containment cradle, humming softly. Its presence was both comforting and terrifying. Whoever had erased Sector 12 had underestimated its power, and now hidden in the rift, they had a chance to understand it fully. Mara connected the obelisk to the station's interface, a delicate process requiring precision and trust. Data flowed through the system, cascading across holographic screens and streams of light and symbols. Elias leaned closer, trying to decipher the torrent of information. "Coordinates," Mara whispered. "Time logs, mission reports, encrypted files that even the Coalition couldn't crack." As the system decrypted, images appeared, memories of erased agents, lost missions, and experiments that skirted the edge of morality. Elias recognized faces, places, and events long buried under layers of official lies. And then, the most crucial files, a blueprint for a device capable of manipulating temporal probabilities. The Coalition hadn't just wanted control, they wanted to bend reality itself. Elias's jaw tightened. If they succeed, they could rewrite history, erase people, events, even entire worlds. Mara nodded, her expression grim. "Which is why they had to erase Sector 12 and anyone who knew the truth, and which is why we cannot leave this station unprepared." They spent hours analyzing the data, mapping out the Coalition's network, its hidden operatives, and potential vulnerabilities. Mara's knowledge of covert operations and Elias's strategic expertise complemented each other seamlessly. Despite the tension, a quiet synergy developed between them, a mutual respect tempered by shared trauma and survival instinct. "Elias," Mara said softly as they paused for a moment, "this station, it's not just a safe house, it's a weapon. If we learn how to control it, we can protect ourselves and use it against them." Elias nodded slowly, the weight of responsibility pressing on him. "Then we'll master it. Every system, every function, every hidden corner. The Coalition won't know what hit them." A sudden alert broke the silence, motion sensors flaring. In a section of the station, Elias and Mara froze. Their eyes met, and without a word, they moved toward the source, weapons drawn, instincts razor-sharp. The corridor they entered was dark, shadows stretching unnaturally across the walls. A faint sound echoed, a whisper, almost human, almost mechanical, and then the figure emerged, a scout from the Coalition, seemingly caught off guard, yet radiating a dangerous calm. "You shouldn't have come here," the figure said, voice modulated, concealing gender and intent. "The rift doesn't forgive trespassers." Elias tightened his grip. "We're not leaving without answers." The scout smirked, stepping closer, energy pulsing faintly from their suit. "Answers will cost you more than you think." Mara's eyes narrowed, a spark of defiance igniting. "Then let's make sure they pay more." The station around them seemed to pulse in anticipation, corridors reacting to the tension, lights flickering like the heartbeat of a living entity. Outside, the rift raged, its chaotic energy threatening to consume everything. Inside, two survivors of forgotten battles faced the first real challenge of reclaiming truth from the Coalition's grasp. And in that frozen moment, the Orenfall Sanctuary became a battlefield. The game had begun. The Epsilon Rift station hummed with a life of its own, its systems flickering as though sensing the charged tension between intruders and defenders. Outside, the rift swirled with deadly elegance, streaks of violet energy illuminating the station's hull in fractured pulses. Inside, Mara and Elias advanced cautiously, the scout they had confronted moments ago retreating into the labyrinthine corridors, but not before leaving behind a trace, a faint energy signature they could follow. Elias tapped a finger against the console. "This station, it's not just semi-sentient, it anticipates." Mara's crimson eyes narrowed. "Yes, it learns from us. Every movement, every decision, mapped, calculated, and sometimes used against us. That scout didn't just appear randomly. The station guided them here." Elias's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then we need to stay unpredictable." The scout's energy trail led them deeper into the bowels of the station, corridors twisting and folding in ways that defied conventional architecture. Gravity shifted subtly, forcing them to adjust their stride, as if the station itself were testing them. The obelisk rested safely in its containment cradle, its hum steady but insistent, a reminder of the power they carried. Finally, they arrived at a central chamber, a room pulsating with dormant machinery and holographic projectors, casting ghostly blue light across the walls. At the center, a cylindrical interface floated above the floor, its surface etched with symbols that seemed both alien and eerily familiar. "This," Mara breathed, "is the core, the device the Coalition seeks, the one capable of manipulating." "Probabilities?" Elias stepped closer, eyes scanning the interface. "It's beautiful, terrifying. And it's alive in a way." Mara placed a hand on the nearest console, connecting the obelisk carefully. Data streamed across the room, a dazzling cascade, revealing simulations of past events, alternate futures, and branching possibilities. Every choice they had made, every decision they were yet to make, appeared as a glowing thread in a vast web of probabilities. It doesn't just predict the future, Mara said, voice trembling slightly. It shapes it. If someone with ill intent controls this, they can bend reality to their will, erase victories, engineer disasters, even eliminate people before they ever existed. Elias's jaw tightened. Then we can't let that happen, not ever. Before they could delve deeper, the station trembled violently. Alarms flared as automated defense drones emerged from hidden alcoves, their weapons charging in response to the energy signature left by the scout. "Defensive protocols!" Elias shouted. "Mara, cover the obelisk!" Mara's fingers danced across the consoles, triggering the station's countermeasures. Doors slammed shut, corridors shifted, and energy barriers materialized, isolating the intruders. The drones moved with precision, but Elias and Mara fought with skill honed through years of survival. The metallic clang of their strikes echoed. In the chamber, punctuated by the hum and crackle of energy weapons, one drone lunged at Elias, its claws extended. He sidestepped, slicing it with a plasma blade before it could strike. Mara used the station's projections to her advantage, creating holographic decoys that confused the remaining drones. "This station? It's responding to them," Mara said, eyes scanning the fluctuating energy fields. "It's adaptive. Every attack they launch, the station counters." Elias nodded, blocking another assault. "Then we adapt faster. Focus on the core. Protect it at all costs." As the battle raged, the obelisk's hum grew louder, its energy pulsing in tandem with the station. Mara sensed the convergence, realizing that the obelisk could interface directly with the station's core. If they could synchronize it, they might gain control, not just for defense, but for understanding. "Elias, I can link it," she shouted over the din. "We might be able to use the station itself to predict their next move." "Do it," he commanded. "I'll keep the drones off you." Mara's hands moved with purpose, connecting the obelisk to the core. Light erupted from the interface, cascading through the room in a blinding spectrum. The drones froze mid-attack, their systems momentarily disrupted as the station pulsed in response to the new connection. For a heartbeat, the chaos stopped. The chamber was filled with cascading visions, simulations of the Coalition's network, alternate strategies, and hidden bases. Threads of probability interwove, revealing vulnerabilities the Coalition had meticulously hidden. "They're not invincible," Mara whispered, awe and determination mingling in her voice. "We can fight back." Elias grasped her shoulder, feeling the weight of their shared responsibility. "Then we do. We use every advantage this station offers, every calculation, every possibility. We turn their own obsession with control against them." The vision faded, replaced by the steady hum of the obelisk and the pulsating energy of the station. Outside, the rift raged as ever, a reminder that the universe itself was chaotic, unpredictable. Yet inside this hidden sanctuary, Elias and Mara had found a weapon, a shield, and a strategy all at once. They were no longer just survivors. They were architects of probability, manipulators of potential futures. And as the first real sense of hope settled between them, both understood the coming battles would test not only their skill and courage, but the very limits of fate itself. Because now, armed with knowledge and a fragile advantage, the Coalition would learn that even the future could be contested, and that the ghost agents they tried to erase were far from powerless. The Epsilon Rift station seemed to exhale, a low hum vibrating through its metal corridors as though the structure itself were aware of the shift in control. Mara and Elias moved cautiously through the labyrinthine hallways, their senses heightened. Every shadow, every flicker of light could conceal a threat or an opportunity. "The probability interface," Mara whispered, her fingers brushing lightly over a console. "It's showing anomalies. Movement in multiple sectors. They're regrouping." Elias nodded, scanning the holographic map projected in front of him. Red markers flickered in the corridors. Coalition operatives, alerted by their previous engagement. "They know we're here, and they're not sending scouts anymore. They're sending strike teams. Mara's crimson eyes glimmered with resolve. Then we prepare. This station gives us a chance, Elias. If we anticipate their moves, we can control the flow. Corridors shifted around them as the station responded, isolating sections to channel potential threats. The duo moved to the central command hub, where the obelisk's glow illuminated their determined faces. "We need to understand their objective," Elias said, tapping into the station's archives. "The Coalition isn't just erasing sectors 12. They want the obelisk itself." Mara's lips pressed together. "If they gain control, they could rewrite outcomes before they even happen. Entire worlds, entire civilizations at their mercy. We can't let that happen." Their discussion was interrupted by a sudden tremor. The walls rippled subtly, and the hum of the station escalated into a warning vibration. A series of automated doors hissed open, revealing a contingent of Coalition operatives, their armor glinting under the flickering lights. "They're testing our defenses," Mara murmured, reading the probability threads streaming from the obelisk. "We need to divide and conquer, but carefully." Elias drew his plasma blade, its edge glowing azure. "Then we split. You take the upper corridors, I'll take the lower. We converge at the core." The corridors of the station became a battlefield of light and shadow. Mara moved like a ghost, her strikes precise and fluid, each movement calculated using the obelisk's predictive threads. She disarmed opponents before they could react, using the station itself to redirect energy fields and create temporary barriers. Meanwhile, Elias navigated the lower corridors, his combat style raw and direct, countering attacks with a combination of strategy and instinct. The station pulsed with every engagement, amplifying their efforts and confounding their adversaries. Amid the chaos, a hidden chamber opened, revealing an unexpected figure, an operative who had once been a part of Sector 12, thought lost. "You shouldn't be here," the figure said, voice tense but familiar. "I came to help?" Mara's eyes narrowed. "Why, are you working with them?" The figure shook their head. "No, but we have information they won't anticipate. We can turn the station's probability network against them, if we trust each other." Elias glanced at Mara. "Trust is a luxury, but we need every advantage. Agreed?" Mara nodded reluctantly. "Agreed." Together the trio moved through hidden access points, using the station's adaptive systems to their advantage. Holographic projections misled Coalition forces, corridors shifted to trap enemies, and security drones were redirected to patrol isolated sections. Every move was a dance of probability, the obelisk guiding them toward outcomes that maximized their chances of survival and counterattack. Hours passed in a blur of combat and calculation. The Coalition operatives were relentless, yet the station, now partially under their control, amplified Mara and Elias's strategic advantage. Each strike, each diversion, and each prediction brought them closer to understanding the Coalition's ultimate plan, a coordinated strike on multiple key sectors across the galaxy. As the dust settled, Mara and Elias regrouped at the central chamber. The operative from Sector 12 stepped forward, placing a hand on the console. "The Coalition underestimated the station's power," they said. "With careful manipulation, you can turn their entire strategy into chaos." Elias exhaled, wiping sweat and grime from his brow. "Then that's what we'll do. Every miscalculation, every overconfidence, they'll regret underestimating us." Mara's gaze lingered on the obelisk, its energy threads shimmering with potential futures. "We're not just fighting for survival anymore," she whispered. "We're shaping what comes next, and nothing, not even the Coalition, will stop us if we stay ahead of the probabilities." Outside, the rift raged, oblivious to the drama unfolding within the hidden station. But within its labyrinthine corridors, alliances were formed, strategies refined, and a fractured probability bent ever closer to their control. The war was far from over, yet for the first time, Mara and Elias felt a spark of hope. an understanding that the future was not fixed, and that, with every calculated move, they could bend the galaxy's chaos toward their favor. As they prepared for the next wave of attacks, Mara whispered, almost to herself, "The station is alive, and now it's on our side." And for the first time since their arrival in the rift, the hum of the station felt less like a warning and more like a promise. The Epsilon Rift Station's walls vibrated with an uneasy energy, the hum of the obelisk echoing through every corridor. Outside, the rift churned violently, casting streaks of violet and silver light across the hull. Mara, Elias, and their new ally from Sector 12, Lyric, stood in the central chamber, their faces illuminated by the pulsating glow of the probability threads projected from the obelisk. "They've gathered their fleets," Lyric said, voice tense. "Coordinated. Strikes across 5 sectors. If they succeed, they'll control the rift's core network. Every possibility, every probability, skewed in their favor." Mara's crimson eyes narrowed. "Then we hit them before they consolidate. We use the station, we use the obelisk, and we make every calculated move count." Elias's hand rested on his plasma blade. "We don't have much time. If they breach the outer defenses, the station itself could collapse. We have to act now." The corridors of the station shifted as if alive, preparing paths and barriers in anticipation of the coming assault. Mara interfaced with the obelisk, her fingers tracing the glowing threads of probabilities that wove through space and time. Visions of incoming attacks, branching outcomes, and hidden traps illuminated her mind. "They're coming," she said, urgency tightening her voice. "And they're smarter this time. They're adapting. We'll have to be unpredictable." The first wave struck without warning. Drones and armored operatives streamed through newly opened corridors, their weapons charged with lethal energy. The station responded immediately, closing doors, redirecting hallways, and activating automated defenses that Mara had partially controlled. Elias met the attackers head-on, his plasma blade slicing through armor with precise strikes. Sparks and energy arcs illuminated the chamber in staccato flashes, while Mara used projections to create holographic doubles, confusing and scattering their enemies. Lyric manipulated the station's environment, opening traps beneath the attackers' feet and channeling energy fields to isolate smaller groups. In the chaos, Mara noticed something unusual, a pattern in the attack vectors that didn't match. Pure aggression. The Coalition had deployed a specialized unit, one that seemed aware of the station's adaptive capabilities. They were testing the obelisk's limits. "They know," Mara shouted to Elias. "They're probing the station's defenses. If we misstep, the core could become unstable." Elias's eyes darkened with determination. "Then we force the advantage, keep them off balance." Using the obelisk, Mara manipulated probability threads to create illusions of corridors and hidden passageways, redirecting Coalition forces into dead ends. Yet, with every successful diversion, another threat appeared, faster, smarter, and more coordinated. Suddenly, a massive energy surge rocked the station. The obelisk's hum intensified, casting radiant pulses through the chamber. Mara's vision, blurred with countless potential outcomes, some leading to victory, others to devastation. She had to choose the right thread, the path that would tilt probability in their favor. "Elias! Lyric! Focus!" she shouted. "We converge now. We bring them to the core." The trio moved with synchronized precision. The corridors folded around them, guiding their enemies into the central chamber, where the obelisk's power could manipulate probabilities most effectively. Drones collided and malfunctioned. Operatives were trapped in looping hallways, and energy fields surged unpredictably, protecting Mara, Elias, and Lyric while disorienting their attackers. At the heart of the chamber, Mara extended her hands over the obelisk. Threads of glowing energy streamed outward, interweaving with the station's adaptive systems. The projection of possible outcomes expanded displaying every conceivable tactic the Coalition could attempt and highlighting the one path that maximized their chance of victory. Elias and Lyric followed her lead, coordinating their movements, precisely with the obelisk's guidance. Every strike, every diversion, and every maneuver became preordained yet flexible, a dance of chaos controlled by probability itself. As the wave of attackers pressed on, the obelisk pulsed brighter than ever. Mara felt the station itself responding, almost sentient, as if approving their strategy. The energy threads began to manipulate the Coalition's attacks, redirecting them into self-defeating paths. Drones collided, units got trapped, and the once feared specialized squad found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. "They're falling apart," Lyric whispered, awe mixed with exhaustion. Mara's lips curved into a determined smile. "No, they're being guided. Probability isn't just about chance, it's about choices, timing, and control. We're rewriting the battlefield." Elias wiped sweat from his brow, scanning the room for remaining threats. "Then let's finish it. We push them completely out of the station, leave them no foothold. Every move from here is ours to command." With a final surge of synchronized effort, Mara amplified the obelisk's influence, channeling it through the station. Corridors and walls shifted dramatically, trapping the remaining attackers in isolated zones. Holographic projections created phantom reinforcements that diverted attention, while automated defenses neutralized the last of the drones. When the dust settled, silence filled the chamber. The obelisk hummed steadily, its threads pulsing with controlled energy. Mara, Elias, and Lyric stood among the remnants of the Coalition's first full-scale assault, victorious for now, but wary of what lay ahead. Mara's crimson eyes lingered on the obelisk. "This station, this power, it's more than a weapon. It's a message. Whoever controls probability controls fate." Elias sheathed his plasma blade, glancing at Mara with a mix of admiration and concern. "Then we better make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands." Outside, the rift continued to swirl violently, a reminder that chaos still reigned in the universe. But inside the station, for the first time, Mara and her allies had bent that chaos toward their favor, and, as they regrouped, preparing for the kilo, inevitable second wave, a shared understanding settled among them. The war for control of the rift, and of probability itself, was only beginning, and they had just taken the first decisive step. The calm after the battle in the central chamber was deceptive. The obelisk's glow had dimmed slightly, settling into a steady pulse, but Mara knew that peace was fragile. Outside the Epsilon Rift station, the rift's turbulence mirrored the unrest within. It was as if the universe itself were holding its breath. "We can't underestimate them," Mara said, pacing along the chamber's polished floor. "The Coalition may have retreated, but their strategy is evolving. They won't attack the same way twice." Lyric, leaning against a console, nodded thoughtfully. "And yet, they don't seem to understand the station's deeper mechanisms. It's more than adaptive. It's conscious, in a way, responding, learning. Almost like it's alive." Elias's eyes darkened as he studied the obelisk. "I've seen predictive threads before, but this is something else. It's not just manipulating probabilities. It's interacting with us, guiding us, testing our choices." Mara approached the obelisk, her fingers tracing the intricate threads of light. Hints of hidden data flickered beneath the surface of what she could perceive. "There's more here," she whispered. "A layer the Coalition hasn't even touched. I can feel something beneath the threads, a secret buried deeper than probability itself." Lyric leaned closer. "You mean a hidden protocol? Something the station's creators left behind?" Mara nodded. "Exactly. But accessing it won't be simple. It will require merging our consciousness with the obelisk, temporarily surrendering control to discover what's hidden." Elias frowned. "Mara, you're talking about risking yourself in a network that even we barely understand." One wrong step, Mara interrupted, her crimson eyes fierce, and we risk losing the station entirely. But if we don't explore it, the Coalition might find it first. The trio prepared for the procedure. Mara centered herself before the obelisk, her fingers resting on the smooth, glowing surface. Lyric and Elias activated protective protocols around her, energy shields, automated drones, and probability barriers ready to intervene if anything went wrong. Mara inhaled deeply, then allowed herself to merge with the obelisk. Threads of energy wrapped around her consciousness, intertwining with her thoughts, memories, and instincts. She felt the station respond, corridors shifting subtly, as if welcoming her deeper exploration. At first, it was disorienting. Countless probabilities overlapped, cascading into one another like a river of shimmering light. Mara felt herself pulled toward multiple outcomes at once, some benign, some catastrophic. The threads whispered in fragmented patterns, revealing glimpses of hidden sectors, encrypted archives, and long-forgotten technologies buried within the station. Then she found it, a sealed chamber completely hidden within the station's infrastructure. Its existence had never been projected in the probability threads, not even in the most extreme simulations. It pulsed with a subtle, violet glow. "This is it," Mara murmured. "The core secret, the station's true purpose." Within the chamber, ancient mechanisms hummed. Data crystals levitated in midair, connected by strands of raw energy, forming what Mara recognized as a repository of knowledge, the Creator's design, history, and warnings. Each crystal contained fragments of civilizations lost, technologies abandoned, and insights into probability manipulation that dwarfed even the obelisk's known power. Lyric's voice echoed in her mind through the neural link. "Be careful. Even reading it could trigger defenses." Mara's eyes narrowed. She carefully interfaced with a single crystal, absorbing information in bursts. Images of civilizations, timelines, and probabilities flashed through her mind. She realized the station wasn't just a weapon, it was a guardian designed to preserve equilibrium in the universe. Its adaptive defenses, its interaction with users, even its sentient threads were all intended to prevent a catastrophic collapse of probability itself. A sudden pulse reverberated through the station. Mara sensed the presence of the Coalition. They were aware that the obelisk had revealed more than they anticipated. Their strikes would come again, but this time, the station's hidden defenses could be brought online in ways previously impossible. She withdrew from the obelisk, her breathing rapid. "It's worse than we imagined," she said. "This station, it's a sentinel, but it's been dormant, waiting for someone capable of understanding it fully. That's why the Coalition underestimated it. They don't see its consciousness, its purpose." Elias stepped closer. "So, we're not just defending it, we're activating it, awakening its full potential." Mara nodded, determination shining through her exhaustion. "And we have to do it before the Coalition can strike. Again, if they learn how to manipulate the threads like we do, the balance could collapse entirely. Entire sectors, entire worlds, gone in moments," Lyric added quietly. "And the obelisk, it seems to respond to morality, to intent. Whoever controls it with the right purpose can influence not just probability, but fate itself." Mara's crimson eyes reflected the violet glow of the hidden chamber. "Then, we need to align ourselves with the station, not just use it. It will protect us, teach us, and guide us. If we prove worthy." Elias's hand rested on her shoulder. "Then we prepare. The next wave won't just test our combat skills, it will test whether we're ready to wield the station's true power." Outside the Epsilon Rift, the chaos of the galaxy continued, oblivious to the tiny yet monumental awakening occurring within the station. Mara, Elias, and Lyric were no longer just defenders. They were now guardians, holding secrets that could alter the fate of countless worlds. As Mara studied the glowing crystals, a single thought dominated her mind. The war was far from over, But now they were no longer merely participants, they were the architects of the next chapter in the universe's unfolding story. And in the quiet hum of the hidden chamber, the obelisk pulsed, almost imperceptibly, as if acknowledging her understanding, and silently promising that the real challenge was yet to come. The Epsilon Rift station hung silently against the churning void, its metallic hull glinting with residual pulses of violet energy. Inside, the hidden chamber still radiated the obelisk's threads, now fully entwined with Mara's consciousness. Her crimson eyes scanned the floating data crystals, absorbing knowledge faster than any human, or even lyric, could follow. Every fragment told a story: lost civilizations, failed experiments, and technologies capable of bending probability. "Itself, this is beyond anything we imagined," Lyric whispered, voice tinged with awe. "The obelisk isn't just a weapon or a tool. It's a repository of civilizations, their decisions, their failures. It's living history." Mara didn't respond immediately. Her mind was deep within the threads, processing layers of information, calculating outcomes, and mapping probabilities in 3 dimensions. Every strike, every maneuver from the coalition was visible in potential projections. The station itself seemed to pulse in response to her understanding, its corridors subtly shifting, doors aligning, and defensive protocols primed. Elias moved beside her, careful not to disrupt her connection. "How long can you sustain this?" he asked. "The longer you stay, the more vulnerable you are." Mara's lips curved in a tight smile. "I don't think vulnerability is the right word anymore. The station is aware. It's protecting me, and it's guiding me. But yes, this interface has limits. I have to act fast." Suddenly, a jolt of energy surged through the chamber. The station's outer walls vibrated violently as sensors picked up a massive incursion. 5 coalition fleets, converging from separate sectors, each carrying specialized units designed to bypass adaptive defenses. The rift itself seemed to writhe in response to their approach. "They're coming," Lyric said, voice tight, "and they've learned from their last failure. This isn't just an attack, it's a full-scale assault designed to overwhelm the station." Mara withdrew her hands from the obelisk, taking a deep breath. The threads lingered in her mind, guiding her even now. "Then we make them walk into the impossible," she said. "We force them to fight, not just us, but the station itself." Stress-based. Elias May drew his plasma blade, energy arcs snapping across its surface. "Then let's give them a welcome they'll never forget." The corridors of the station shifted dramatically as Mara interfaced with the obelisk once more. Holographic duplicates of the defenders appeared in multiple sections, diverting and confusing attackers. Automated defenses came alive, energy turrets emerging from walls, force fields isolating intruders, and gravity manipulators redirecting the coalition's movements. Yet, even with these defenses, the sheer scale of the attack pressed them to the brink. Mara realized that conventional tactics would not suffice. She had to awaken the station fully, its sentinel mode, a state long dormant, requiring complete synchronization with her consciousness. "Elias, Lyric," she said, eyes glowing brighter. "We're going deeper. We synchronize completely. The station's true potential, it's going to manifest." Lyric hesitated. "You mean risking full immersion?" "One mistake, and I know the risks," Mara cut in firmly, "but there's no other way. Either we control probability, or it controls us." The 3 stepped into the central nexus, the chamber above the obelisk, expanding and warping around them. Energy threads coiled, wrapping around their bodies, integrating their neural patterns with the station. Mara's mind melded seamlessly with the obelisk, feeling its sentience, its memory, and its awareness as one. She could see every corridor, every hidden trap, every probability thread the coalition might exploit. The first wave of attackers breached the outer perimeter, but this time the station moved preemptively. Corridors shifted instantly, isolating. Squads redirecting drones into containment zones and projecting holographic decoys that made the coalition strike themselves repeatedly. Mara guided every action, every strike, every barrier, predicting outcomes not just seconds ahead, but minutes, hours, even potential futures. Elias moved like a shadow, striking only where Mara indicated, while Lyric manipulated environmental hazards with near-perfect timing. Together they became extensions of the station's will, a unified force of living strategy. The coalition adapted, sending elite units designed to neutralize probability manipulation. Yet even they were caught in the labyrinth of impossible paths. Energy pulses redirected attacks, gravity fields distorted movements, and holographic doubles created infinite illusions. Every attempt to predict Mara's strategy failed. She was no longer a mere agent, she was the Sentinel's mind in motion. Amid the chaos, Mara discovered something alarming. A hidden data node deep within the station contained information about the Coalition's command algorithms. Whoever activated it could potentially turn the station's own adaptive systems against Mara and her allies. She realized the attack wasn't just physical, it was an attempt to seize control of the station. "Itself, Elias, Lyric," she shouted. "We need to secure the command node. If they access it, the station could turn against us." They raced through shifting corridors, Mara's mind guiding their path with precision. Energy arcs flared as drones and elite units intercepted them, but every move was predicted and countered. They reached the node, its interface humming ominously. Mara touched it, merging briefly to override any coalition attempts to hack into the system. The node recognized her intent, locking her in and granting her temporary access to the station's deepest systems. Mara unleashed a cascade of probability distortions that disabled all coalition control attempts, redirecting units into containment and neutralization sequences. Finally, as the last wave of attackers faltered, the station's sentinel mode reached full activation. Holographic projections of ancient civilizations flashed briefly in the air, and the obelisk's energy surged, stabilizing the corridors and neutralizing the remaining threats. Mara withdrew from full synchronization, breathless but exhilarated. Elias lowered his plasma blade, voice hoarse. You've awakened it, fully. The station, it's alive, and it's on our side." Mara's crimson eyes reflected the pulsating obelisk. "It's not just alive, it's aware, and now it trusts us to wield its power responsibly. But this is just the beginning. The coalition won't stop. And the rift has more secrets we've yet to uncover." Outside the station, the rift's storms continued to swirl violently. But now the station glowed with an aura of controlled energy. A sentinel awakened, a bastion of probability, ready to turn chaos into opportunity. Mara, Elias, and Lyric stood together, the weight of countless potential futures pressing on them, yet with a newfound certainty they could shape destiny itself. And in that silence, the station's pulse was a promise. The war for probability had escalated, and the universe would never be the same. The Epsilon Rift station had stabilized, its corridors humming with a quiet, almost sentient energy. Mara walked through the central nexus, crimson eyes scanning the flowing threads of data, still pulsing faintly from the sentinel mode she had awakened. Elias and Lyric followed silently, tension etched into their features. Though the last assault had been repelled, Mara could feel the ripples of the coalition's strategy echoing through the rift's energy fields. They were not finished, not by far. "This calm is deceptive," Mara murmured, her voice low but resolute. "The coalition doesn't rely solely on brute force. They've been analyzing us, learning. Their next strike, it will be different. Subtle, internal, psychological." Lyric frowned. "Internal? How?" "The station is ours now. They can't touch it unless we leave vulnerabilities," Mara finished, "and they've found them. Somewhere, Inside the station, there's a seed of compromise, a piece of code or an agent hidden in plain sight. I can feel it like a shadow moving against the flow of probability. Elias glanced around the nexus, his grip on the plasma blade tightening. "You're saying they have a mole inside the station?" "Not a mole in the traditional sense," Mara said. "Something more insidious, something embedded in the station's systems, ancient code the Coalition repurposed. And it's awake now." A low hum vibrated through the chamber as the station itself seemed to react, corridors subtly shifting as if the walls themselves were whispering secrets to Mara. Threads of energy pulsed faster, casting faint reflections across her pale skin and deep crimson eyes. She could see glimpses of potential futures. Corridors trapped, energy fields misaligned, defensive protocols turning against their own. "We need to find it," Mara said firmly, "before it spreads." They split into 3 teams, Mara in the central core, Elias scanning structural corridors, and Lyric monitoring environmental controls and auxiliary systems. The station seemed almost alive, responding to Mara's presence with a pulsing glow. Yet she felt the intruder moving with deliberate intelligence, anticipating their moves. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time warped strangely within the rift. Mara traced thread after thread of anomalous code, following a subtle distortion that whispered through the station like a ghost. Finally, in a rarely used subchamber beneath the obelisk's main core, she found it, a nanite swarm, invisible to conventional sensors, feeding on the sentinel's energy and mimicking her commands to the station. "They're inside," Mara muttered, crimson eyes flaring. "The Coalition sent a living algorithm. It's learning, adapting, and if it reaches full power, it could turn the station against us." Elias materialized behind her, plasma blade at the ready. "Can we destroy it?" Mara shook her head. "Not directly. Any attempt to annihilate it could trigger a cascade, collapsing the Sentinel's systems. We need finesse, subtlety, precision." Lyric's voice came through the comm link. "I've isolated its feed loops. If you can synchronize with it for just a moment, Mara, you might be able to overwrite it without alerting it to our presence." Mara took a deep breath. The crimson threads of energy responded, wrapping around her mind like coils of fire. With each pulse, she accessed the nanite's consciousness, a hive of relentless computation, cold but not devoid of pattern. She extended her awareness gently, inserting fragments of her will into the swarm, guiding it toward an innocuous loop that would neutralize its adaptive potential without triggering alarm. The process was tense. Mara's heartbeat echoed in her ears, even as time seemed to dilate. Any misstep could alert the swarm, and then the entire station would become a weapon against them. She whispered commands into the data threads, weaving probability with precision, guiding the swarm like a shepherd her flock. Outside the subchamber, Elias and Lyric held positions, wards, and defense fields shimmering faintly. Every corridor pulse was a potential threat. Every shadow could harbor intruders. Mara felt their focus supporting her, though they could not see the war unfolding within her mind. Finally, a pulse of crimson energy flared from the obelisk, and Mara exhaled sharply. The nanite swarm had been reprogrammed, its adaptive algorithms neutralized and absorbed into the station's benign systems. It no longer moved against them. It was dormant, harmless. "We did it," Lyric said, relief palpable in his tone. Mara stepped back, letting the threads of the sentinel recede from her consciousness. "Temporary victory," she murmured. "The Coalition will not wait long before trying another approach. They are clever, adaptive. We have to be one step ahead at all times." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder, firm but cautious. "And you, Mara, even with the station's power, you've been pushing yourself beyond limits. How long can you maintain this?" She smiled faintly, crimson eyes softening in reflection. "Long enough to protect what matters, but it's not just about me. It's about the station, about the rift, about ensuring we can survive the next storm." As they emerged from the subchamber, The corridors seemed calm once more, but Mara knew better. Shadows lingered everywhere. The station itself had become a battleground, not just of energy and firepower, but of intellect and strategy. The Coalition's reach was insidious, and each new attack would test not only their strength, but their ingenuity. Yet Mara felt something else, too, a subtle thrill, the dance of probability, the delicate interplay of strategy and instinct was intoxicating. And as long as she lived, she would fight, not for glory, not for power, but for the delicate balance between chaos and order, between choice and inevitability. In the heart of the Epsilon Rift, crimson eyes scanned the threads of the universe, and Mara smiled. The game had changed, but she was ready. Outside, the rift shimmered with latent energy, storms swirling with unknowable potential. And somewhere within that infinite lattice of possibility, the Coalition prepared its next move. Mara's pulse quickened, her mind alive with anticipation. The war for the rift had entered a new phase, and the true test of her mastery and her humanity was only just beginning. The Epsilon Rift pulsed with an unnatural glow, waves of energy radiating from the obelisk like the heartbeat of a slumbering giant awakened. Mara stood at the center of the main nexus, crimson eyes scanning the pulsating threads of the station's energy lattice. The Coalition's final move had begun, a maneuver so subtle that the very fabric of reality within the rift seemed to bend in anticipation. Elias and Lyric flanked her, their faces set with determination, yet even they felt the tension in the air. Time itself seemed stretched, seconds elongating, corridors bending in impossible geometries, and the sentinel's threads quivering as though sensing the coming storm. "They've done it," Mara murmured, her voice a whisper yet resonating with authority. "The Coalition has found a way to destabilize the station itself. Not through force, but through resonance. They're using the rift's energy against itself." Lyric's gaze swept the room, scanning every console and corridor. "Is there any way to counter it?" Mara shook her head. "Not conventionally. We'll need to harmonize with the station, synchronize fully, and guide the energy flow manually. If we fail—" Her lips tightened. "We lose everything, not just the station, but the rift itself." The obelisk in the center of the nexus flared with vibrant energy, threads of crimson and silver intertwining in chaotic patterns. Mara approached it, letting the threads of the sentinel fold around her consciousness. She felt the station awaken, fully beneath her, alive with awareness, yet frightened, reacting to the external manipulation of its energy. "Elias, Lyric," she said, "brace yourselves. I'll be guiding the main energy flow, but I need you both to stabilize the auxiliary nodes. Any disruption, and the station could collapse." Elias nodded, plasma blade in hand, while Lyric interfaced with the auxiliary controls, fingers dancing across holographic panels that bent space around them. Mara extended her mind, crimson threads merging with the station's energy lattice, feeling the pulse of billions of quanta within the rift. The Coalition's interference was subtle, yet precise. Like a virus infecting a living organism, one wrong move could unravel it all. Suddenly, a shockwave of energy radiated from the obelisk. Mara staggered mentally, crimson eyes narrowing as she glimpsed the Coalition's final agent, an artificial intelligence, a hyper-evolved consciousness that had infiltrated the rift itself. It moved like liquid logic, calculating all possible outcomes, predicting her moves with terrifying accuracy. "They've sent their ultimate weapon," Mara murmured. "A mind of pure strategy. I can feel its presence, cold, deliberate, endless." Lyric's voice cut through the mental haze. "Mara, you have to focus. The nodes are stable, but they're not enough. You're the only thing that can guide the core." Taking a deep breath, Mara allowed herself to sink deeper into the station's consciousness, letting her identity merge with the sentinel. Her crimson eyes flared, threads of energy spiraling outward in waves of synchronization. She could feel the AI probing, testing, but her intuition, her humanity, added a variable it could not compute. The nexus trembled, walls bent and unbent, corridors folding into themselves, lights flickering like stars being born and destroyed. The AI lashed out, trying to seize control of the obelisk, yet Mara responded instantly, weaving probability and intent into the lattice. Each pulse of the station became a note in a symphony only she could conduct. Elias and Lyric's shouts echoed faintly as they maintained the auxiliary nodes. "Mara, it's weakening," Elias cried, sensing a shift in the resonance. "Yes," Mara whispered, crimson threads weaving faster, "but not enough. I need one final convergence. Perfect alignment of energy and intent. If I miscalculate..." She trailed off, eyes narrowing with absolute focus. The rift's energy swelled around her, bending to her will, the AI's presence now a dark undertone in the vast symphony of light. Mara visualized the final alignment, a precise lattice of crimson, silver, and gold, converging at the obelisk's core. She extended her consciousness fully, letting instinct and intuition guide each pulse, each thread of energy. A blinding flash erupted as the AI struck, a wave of pure logic and power colliding with Mara's human-guided resonance. The station shuddered violently. Elias was thrown against a wall, Lyric nearly ripped from the control panel. Mara's vision blurred, crimson threads tangling with silver and gold in a storm of energy and will. Then, stillness. The threads aligned perfectly, converging at the obelisk. The AI's presence fractured, its consciousness dispersed harmlessly into the lattice. Mara staggered back, breathing heavily, crimson eyes dimming slightly as the sentinel's energy stabilized. The station hummed softly, alive yet peaceful, the Epsilon rift finally secure. Elias and Lyric rushed to her side. "You did it," Lyric said, voice trembling with relief. Mara allowed herself a faint smile. "We did it," she corrected. "The station survived, and so did we." She stepped away from the obelisk, crimson eyes scanning the calm nexus. The rift was intact, the coalition's ultimate strike thwarted, but she knew this victory was only temporary. The universe was vast, full of threats that moved in shadows and probabilities. Yet for the first time in weeks, Mara felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. She had trusted her instincts, embraced the station as part of herself, and survived the ultimate test. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder, firm yet reverent. "What now, Mara?" She looked at him, crimson eyes, soft but resolute. "Now, we rebuild, we learn, and when the coalition comes again, we'll be ready. But for now, we survive together." The Epsilon rift shimmered around them, threads of light stretching to infinity, a testament to their resilience, intelligence, and the indomitable human spirit. Mara's crimson gaze lingered on the obelisk, aware that this was just one chapter in an ongoing war. But for tonight, the station and the rift itself were theirs. And somewhere deep within the lattice of possibilities, Mara allowed herself a single thought. For the first time, she felt the calm certainty that she was truly home.